statement. Before we begin, we acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional and unceded territory of the Lummi, Nooksack, Samish, and Semiahmoo people who have cared for and tended this land since time immemorial. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. We begin this effort to acknowledge what has been buried by honoring the truth. We pay respect to their elders, past and present. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us here together today. And please join us in uncovering such truths at any and all public events. Good afternoon, everybody. Actually, it's good morning yet. It's 11:32, August 12th, 2025. And this is the Incarceration Prevention Reduction Task Force Legal and Justice Systems Committee. So we'll call the meeting to order, and the first agenda item is the discussion of the courtroom design and the new facility. So I think we've got several individuals that are near and dear to me in assisting us on concerns that the court's office and the jail and district court all have, as well as Tammy from Bellingham is with us, and I think everybody will have some input on things that we think need to be considered as we start discussions. Actually, the discussions have been going for well on the new facility and courtroom design. Jill, I'm going to try to share the screen here to kick it off. All right, so can you guys all see a basic weekly calendar that's on my computer?
Yes, we can see that. Thank you.
Great. All right. I also have Sandra Keeley here in my office with me. She is my chief deputy for Superior Court, and she might have some additional input. So back in May, it seems like it was just yesterday, but Barry and I worked together with the municipal district, superior courts, judges, and the jail, and what we currently are using, and how many courtrooms or how many different courts are currently using the current courtroom at the jail. And as you can see, it's being heavily used by all of the courts in Whatcom County, and it's putting a strain on court staff as well as jail staff. And then there's also transports that are concerning. And so as we look at building a new facility, I know there's been discussion about courtrooms in the new facility. And Caleb, if you can answer me this, were they talking about 2 courtrooms or 1 in the new facility?
Well, we're really talking about needs at this point and trying to be listening. So we're listening to what you all are expressing and trying to keep careful notes. At this point, we don't know what the exact yeses or nos are right now.
Okay. So just seeing the pressure that we have right now, I know Jake can attest that Superior Court has been putting some pressure on district court to be able to finish their hearings in a sooner time than what we've had. Usually we're supposed to start at 3 o'clock for Superior Court first appearances. And those first appearances sometimes don't start until 4. We've had them start as late as 4:30. And sometimes that means I've got staff that are staying to 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. And I don't have the budget for my staff to be putting in the overtime. And we can't really tell people in the jail that we're sorry, we know you have a right to a hearing, but we have to stop this because we don't have the money in the budget for overtime, or we don't have the courtroom space in the jail. So we were hoping that district court would be able to move theirs back a little bit because everybody's getting busier. There's more hearings, there's more people. And so as we look forward to the future, ideally, I honestly think that there needs to be 3 courtrooms. And I would like to hear from Jake and Tammy on their thoughts, because district and the municipal courts heavily use it, but Bellingham probably more than any of the other municipalities. And transporting people to the court is a problem, as well as making sure we have interpreters and space for defense to meet with their clients. Sometimes we can't find interpreters, so we're having to have Zoom capabilities. So IT needs to be brought into some of these discussions so that if we have rooms available in the new facility for defense counsel to meet with their clients, there should also be shared IT space and safety concerns for them to be able to meet with their clients and to have those interpreter meetings in a timely manner. But you also have, like I said, you have other courts needing these facilities as well. And I'm gonna see if Jake, do you have any feedback on this?
I reviewed it. I sent the heads up to both our judges that this was on the agenda today. The feedback they provided was they would suggest or prefer that there be 2 courtrooms if that is an option at a minimum. And then I think more of the issue is like the, the availability of Zoom online and, the whole electronic access. So, things could go a little bit smoother with translation and maybe use additional conference rooms. So there could be translation in those as well for when they're meeting and not delaying what's going on out in the actual courtroom. So that's kind of what I'll throw out there for right now. Thanks.
Tammy, do you have any input?
And I'm in line with Jake, and with you, that we need at least 3 physical courtrooms and options for virtual courtrooms at the jail as well. Especially with the new arraignment rules that recently went through, that the smaller cities are going to need extended access to the jail to have arraignments within 3 days. So that's something that we have to look at as well. And with everyone bumping up and everyone's calendars expanding, we do need more access, more rooms to hold hearings. So.
Really?
Really, can you have,
Oh, yeah.
could you send out that weekly calendar to Jill so that she can email it to us?
Yes, I'll get that done. Barry, do you have input on transport?
I do. I mean, I think we're not serving ourselves very well if we don't look far into the future. And Caleb's done more work on this than I have with facilities. But when you start thinking about the needs of the courts, the needs of the public defenders, everybody involved, I don't see how you really can't at least have a discussion about a 3rd courtroom. The idea of having to move all these people from where they're at potentially to a common court space within the new jail is, to me, that's a logistics nightmare. But then again, I will fully admit that I don't know what hearings they are required to physically be at and what can be managed at a remote level. I would ask Maya or Stark if he was available to speak to that. But I agree with Jake. I think it was who said it. We have to have IT involved. There is technology that other jurisdictions, other counties are using, whether it's DocuSign or whatever. We have to think ahead to make sure we're preparing ourselves, to best suit our growing community and the needs of the jail. And I have the luxury of not being involved in the meetings and knowing what money is supposed to go to other places. So, in a perfect world, that's what I would say.
Maya?
Yeah,
Thanks.
in addition to these regular daily calendars involving first appearance and arraignment, it would make sense to have a courtroom that could be used for pretrial hearings for folks that are in custody, because while a jury trial would need to be conducted at the downtown courthouse, because I think there's case law that says you can't do jury trials in a jail setting, that is just too isn't appropriate. There are a lot of hearings pre-trial that occur, like suppression hearings and 3-5 hearings having to do with statements of the defendant, and just general like evidentiary hearings that happen before the actual trial that could be done if there was space to have. So it's like, it seems like we need multiple courtrooms, maybe 2, to allow everyone time to do their first appearances and arraignments, but then a 3rd courtroom would be available for actual substantive hearings. And I don't know how we would share that, but.
Well, I think ideally, the only time I would assume that we would want to transport would be for trials.
Right.
And that's something that Barry and I discussed earlier, is that it's too cumbersome for the jail and for us to be able to do that. But if we're going to have those courtrooms, we're also going to need space for clerks to be working at that new facility as well. And I would want somebody at least as a supervisory role in the criminal field over at that facility to be operational. I would have to rotate, but I could see that as a need as well.
I mean, I am curious what a sketched out schedule would look like, because I just think about where the lawyers need to be. You know, it's like we could not have out of custody criminal calendars happening at the same time downtown at the same time as in custody criminal calendars are happening, because the lawyers have to be in both. So there would have to, I don't know, that just creates a lot more calendar time where when do the lawyers do the actual work and meet with their clients if we create too many calendars? So it's a interesting conundrum. I think we should that should maybe be sketched out a little bit to see if it's even feasible.
Barry?
I actually don't think I answered your question about staffing for transport. With our current staffing, as you guys are all painfully aware, we already have issues navigating all of the stuff that we're trying to accomplish. If, as we move forward and whatever design is presented to us, that will change our staffing model. So what that number would end up being like, I don't know, but if you account for moving bodies around a new facility and you account for having to bring people downtown for trial, that staffing number is going to probably triple from what we currently have, and that might still not be enough. But again, we don't know that until we're given those designs. And I, from my understanding, let's a year from that, maybe not quite that much, but but these conversations are important, because when it comes to having that dialogue with what we need, there's going to have to be support from and for everybody across the board, whether the public defenders they probably need more staff, the clerks need more staff, we need more staff. And when you talk about hiring people, that just costs a lot of money. And that sticker shock that people are going to get when they start seeing what it's going to take to operate, it is the cost of doing business, but it's going to be an ugly taste in most people's mouth when they start seeing, what is required to operate a new facility that we, dare I say, hope to get.
Thanks, Barry. Wendy and then Eric.
Mine's just a quick question. And Maya, you might be you and Eric. Is there any possibility, I'm thinking of the Superior Court calendars, that there can be the folks who are being scheduled to be at the courthouse and take care of it, but that we would be able to have the offenders that were in custody be able to do it remotely? I think it presents a difficulty for public defenders if they want to be talking to their client, they'd have to do a lot of prep before so that the client was comfortable with whatever the decision was going to be. But a lot of times, and I don't know because I've been gone for 18 months or so, if it's gotten better, but traditionally would send, the streams of chains of people over to the courthouse, and half, 2/3 sometimes were just set over because people weren't ready to do whatever they needed to do. And so if there was a way of kind of tightening that process up, or figuring out a way that the people that were in jail could show up for calendar, unless it was a guilty plea, that they would do that remotely. And I'm babbling. I have had some coffee, but not quite enough. So if there's a way to make that work, because otherwise I'm not really sure how the jail's going to be able to pull it off. Thank you.
So Wendy,
Thanks.
you kind of hit on some of the things I was going to say, and that was, working remotely and using some technology to have people participate from different locations. I think it's going to be impossible to move around attorneys to different locations during the day. And we can hardly make sure that we can have attorneys cover different courtrooms within this one building. I mean, it's been real difficult, and it's going to get worse having them drive up by 5. We got to look at remote stuff. We have to look at efficiencies that way. I don't see any other way of doing it.
And, from my perspective, we have really strong feelings against remote proceedings. They dehumanize our clients. It makes it not very real to them when they're looking at a screen that's got bodies on it, but they're not really there for them. I don't think our lawyers would agree to not be with our clients. I think it is critical that we be standing with our clients. Things are too fluid, and how do we have confidential conversations with them in that setting? And this morning I was over at the criminal calendar, and this was out of custody people, and we don't have the paperwork yet. It's the morning of the guilty plea, and we haven't been provided the paperwork yet. And it's like, we have to sit down and review that with our client. And it's just, I don't see that really improving necessarily. I think there's always going to be these weird lags. And, sometimes it's because the plea negotiations went on until 5 p.m. last night, and there's this last minute change. And I think the idea that this can be done remotely is, we should not be working from the perspective that is going to be effective. I don't think that should be a goal. I don't think that it's, I think we need to really think about how are we going to make this so that we can all be in the same room together. And I think that's a reasonable goal, and one we can probably achieve.
Thanks, Maya. Caleb or Rob, and then Eric.
No, I'm not. Okay. Sorry. One more thing to put, and I think this has already been said, but let's put a fine point on it. There's kind of 2 things at work here. Number one, the cost of building a structure certainly has to be a consideration, because, it's not like there's an open-ended budget for building whatever we would like. But number 2, whatever we build, we have to operate. And that includes, all of the court-related activities, but also the custody-related activities. And so as a team, we're going to have to keep a really close eye on that careful balance between building a structure and being able to operate that same space.
Thanks. Eric? You're muted.
I was so eloquent there for a second. So, so really, I appreciate Maya's position on all of this, and I understand that there are different roles here within the system, and I can just say that as hard as it is to get my prosecutors in position to handle these different courts, I think that we're going to need to have the technology, at least for the prosecutors, to step in remotely. And that might, and while public defenders need to be there in person, that may be the case, but we may not have the personnel to handle that. So yeah, definitely got a plan for it, and I think even expect it.
Sheriff Tanksley.
Yeah, hi. All these different comments are great, but I think what we need to do sooner than later is get the different stakeholders in a room and really start sketching out the different scenarios, because it's great to meet on Zoom, but I think we need to form some type of uh, subcommittee to really, put this on paper, because what I'm noticing is that I don't think it's going to be a win-win in every category for everyone. But as the design builders are, will be coming on board very soon, we need to have a plan, at least something that's, on paper, to see really what this looks like. So I encourage everyone really to, I guess, be patient, but we need to get in the room together. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Tanksley. And real quick, when we had this meeting in May, I want to say there was close to 50 participants. We had people from all the municipalities, somebody from district, defense, prosecution, and I think we need to bring that back together, because we did have everybody in the guard room, and that's where we came up with the weekly schedule of what's currently happening. And so we need to sketch out what the future holds, because as we look at the future, if you're going to build it and we're going to be at capacity in the courtrooms, and we're going to end up with a court lag time because we don't have the facilities or the space or the transport. That's really why we do need to put this together. And it does seem to make a difference when we're all in the same room. So I completely concur with that. And with that being said, so we've got caseload standards that have changed. And, we're still looking at some of the difference, but that's going to increase the amount of public defense required. Those caseload standards that are going to change what defense looks like in Whatcom County in the near future and across the state. That doesn't necessarily mean that the prosecutors are going to be at the same level. And when you add more public defenders and you don't add prosecution, you're still going to have somewhat of a lag time. And then, we already looked in our office between prosecution and defense, there was 15 legal assistants. There's 3 criminal clerks in my office that are processing, 15 legal assistants are processing. So just put that in perspective as the new legislative mandates come in, that's not funding all the other people that have to process that. The technology is great. That is something I think we need to work on. So IT needs to be involved in these discussions. But there is also concerns, as Maya pointed out, it doesn't always work well, especially when you have somebody that's already mentally ill, challenged, and they hear things and then you put a screen in front of them. There's some people that it's just not going to work for, even though we want it to. And then we brought up the CRLJ 4.1 CR. We had a meeting on that last week. Was that right, Eric or Maya? I think. And the changes from going from, I think it was 14 days from the charging to 3 days for arraignments. So that's another legislative mandate that's going into effect that's going to impact what we're required to do. So there's a whole lot of different areas that we're going to have to work through each of these details and determine what staffing needs are, as well as the facility and what we have funding to build. So I think all the players need to have some input. I'm going to bring it back to Wendy and then Sheriff Tanksley.
Just real quick, another question, and Caleb, you may be the best to answer this. I know that you've looked at a lot of programming and different jails and that type of thing throughout the country. I didn't know if we've reached out, even if it was local to Washington State, some of the larger jurisdictions that Pierce County, King County, Snohomish, the folks that have these kind of blended calendars and what works and what didn't and what did they try and real quickly said, yeah, that's not going to work. I just don't know if we've been able to get that information or not.
Yeah, we've reached out to and done a number of tours and looked at facilities and structures in various places. One thing I can say is that very few places do it exactly alike. And also very few places seem to have the same key ingredients that Whatcom County is facing. So not a one size fits all solution, but certainly important things to consider, Wendy. We should be reaching out to other jurisdictions so that we're not reinventing any wheels. So that will be a part of the discussion as we move forward.
Well, and there is one other resource that I'm assuming is still functioning, and that's the National Institute of Corrections. As far as I know, they're still running at least an annual course that allows jails to come from all over the country about really focused on constructing a new facility. So I'm wondering whether anybody's had a chance to contact NIC, see if they've got information about this particular issue. Don't you love it that somebody comes in and just gives you all more work to do? But it just popped in as I was listening. So thank you.
Thanks, Wendy. Sheriff Tanksley?
Yeah, so I just want to really talk about, I know earlier some people asked about 2 courtrooms or 3 courtrooms. And I think what we need to do is try to find out the price point, if you will, on those differences. And really also consider that we're looking to build this, this jail, for the next 25, 30 years. So although one might say, okay, 2 courtrooms is enough, but do we really need 3? But we also have to think about that maybe not all 3 of the courtrooms are designed the same. So, really getting people into the room to see what we need, because, for example, 2 courtrooms could be, X, square footage, then another one might be smaller. So I think we really need to take a look at those price points, which I have no clue how much that might cost.
Thanks, Sheriff Tanksley. Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at a facility for 25 years and we're already seeing legislative challenges with mandates that we can't staff or we don't have the facility space, I really honestly think we need to be looking at 3. Do they all need to be the same size? No, I think we can probably go down in size. We've got several different sizes of courtrooms currently. And we have some that are more technology heavy for stuff that can be done remotely. But they all are going to have some type of breakout rooms for defense counsel to be able to meet with their clients. So I think those are some things that we really need to look at. And, I did talk to some of the other municipalities earlier last week in reference to some of the changes and would they be able to combine some of their calendars together so that maybe district court could start earlier, which means we could start earlier. And that is something that they're exploring to see what's going to meet their needs. But now they're also saying because of these new standards, they may need an extra hearing date. And so that's going to spill over into pushing back on what we're already trying to do with just district and superior court. So all of these things, I think, need to be looked at. And so maybe it's Barry and I can try to coordinate and set up another meeting like we did in May. But Sheriff Tanksley and Caleb, I would like assistance in an agenda on specific areas that you need, you feel that we need to be looking at.
really, and I was going to bring that up. I think, for the time being, maybe we do it quarterly, but we missed an opportunity, or IT wasn't able to attend last time because they were in the middle of their move.
Right.
Some of the things we talked about is, as you said, joining court, but that also has many, many other fingers that's going to affect court paperwork. Can we get into contract with a pro tem that can cover it and is working for all the municipalities? It really, at the end of the day, we're going to have to think outside the box of what can we do that's not our norm. And we're just, truth be told, we're going to miss the mark, but we need to learn from what we're trying and see what we can do to get closer to something that suits the needs of everyone. Yeah, but kicking the can down the road and not having the conversation will not serve us at all, obviously, but we need to have these conversations and be respectful of everybody's potential limitations, whether it's public defender's office not being able to travel out, the 5 miles to and from and whatnot. I totally understand that and I respect that, but we have to have those conversations and see, how we can satisfy as many needs as we can.
Thank you, Barry. Okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns, thoughts about moving forward and what our needs are for courtroom space? And there's silence. Okay, I think I'm gonna close that agenda item for today. I appreciate everybody's input. And Barry and Caleb, we can figure out a date and time for the next roundtable meeting and make sure that when we schedule it, that we also have IT and facilities there, as they're gonna be instrumental in helping us get this done. And then Eric, my only question for you, or food for thought, is with the caseload standards and the increase in defense, are you going to be looking at increasing prosecution numbers in the future as well?
Probably, but we don't know what it's going to look like at this point, so I don't have a whole lot to say today.
And I mean, I can't, Eric will be better situated to articulate the changes in the workload that his staff have experienced as things have evolved. The reasons behind the changes for defense attorneys, I mean, we have a very different job than Eric's lawyers do. We have clients that we need to build rapport with. We have to do investigation. We have to explore mitigation. We have to review all of we don't have people who are present like he does, officers at the scene who write reports about what they saw. We have to start from scratch, from zero, and build all of that. So the work is quite different from the different sides, and the time involved in what we have to do is different than what the state has to do to prepare a case for prosecution. So, I don't know that the ratios, I mean, they're not going to be the same, and I don't know that they need to be the same because we do different work. But I'm not to say that Eric doesn't need more help or, won't be advocating for that. I'm not suggesting that he shouldn't, or that his office doesn't need to expand. They may well, and there'll be reasons for that, but they're not really tied to increasing the number of defenders, because the number of cases is the same. It's just our ability to effectively represent those people and do the work that needs to be done to adequately represent the people. We need to be able to go deeper. Yeah, Eric.
Yeah, thank you. I agree that the job's different, and I don't expect anything to be one-to-one, anything like that. But when there will be more public defenders, there will be more work. More public defenders will generate work.
More emails, I promise. More phone calls, I promise.
Well, for sure that, and more hearings, and more motions of sorts, and that need to be dealt with, more trials. So yeah, anyway, there will be an impact, and to what it looks like, I don't know yet. I really don't. That's all I got.
Right, moving on to the second agenda item is we discussed DWS thirds at the last meeting. Jake diligently worked on pulling some numbers for us that should be in your packet. Thanks, Jake, for working on that.
No, yeah, no problem. Are there, I mean, any questions? I mean, majority of those are state patrol, sheriff's office, keep in mind. Also, the majority of those are within 5 years, when they expire, more often than not, they're not reissued, those types of cases. So that's why the bulk of them are, from 20 or 19 moving forward, so.
Yeah, I looked at those and it looks like the numbers are actually going down over the years because I'm not sure if it was it January through May of 2025 that you looked through?
Yeah, it was, the end of May is when we ran that report.
So just for this year so far, it was like 9, I think, in 2025, and then 2024, there were 34 with the charge date in 2024 for DWS thirds, and then in 2023 there were 42. So it does seem like the numbers are going down. I don't know if that's a difference from prosecution. I mean, this is mainly just focusing in on district court. It's not taking into account the municipalities, but
Right. So Raylene, I'll
Oh,
tell you, this is all to do with prosecution. This is my choice telling people that we're not going to be prosecuting these cases as standalones unless there's some sort of traffic safety issue involved with it. You can go to the Ferndale Municipal Court, you can go to Bellingham Municipal Court. You'll see that those things are being charged and probably going up, just like everything else is going up with population growth and things like that. We are not charging those things, and that's the difference. In fact, and the bigger thing that I thought we were really going to be talking about is how we dismiss them and how they get into the system in the first place. And because the state patrol is filing them directly, and I believe the sheriff's office is too. Jake, nod. Yes, true. Yeah, so they come in directly, and then we have to dismiss them at arraignment, which is it's a time when somebody's picked up and probably brought to. Either they're picked up or they're directed to come to court, and then we dismiss them. And that's more work for everybody when we're just planning on dismissing the case in the first place. So I've reached out to Pierce County and talked to an assistant chief who's in district court to find out how they do it, because they do not allow direct filing. They send everything to the prosecutor for review. And when I say they, I'm talking about Washington State Patrol, their sheriff's office, and any other agency that's sending things. Everything goes to the prosecutor's office first for review, and then the prosecutor files. The system that goes into place is it takes collaboration with the prosecutor and the court. It requires a direct information to the state patrol and sheriff's office, telling them that things will not be filed unless they go to the prosecutor's office first for review. And I think that agencies will respect that with joint collaboration with the prosecutor and the court. Now, with that said, it's a process. It's something that takes time. If we've filed our own cases, it means that we have to do all the paperwork to get people present before the court. We'd have to have a filing team every morning, and but it's possible, but we're looking into that right now. You had asked us about what the numbers were, how many people are getting booked on DWS 3, on no-vols, on failure to transfer title, things like that. And I wasn't able to dig that number up, but I did ask Caleb to see if he could get it. And he may have that number now, he may not. I called him yesterday because Jake called me yesterday. And and anyway, hopefully we can get a number here, if not today, soon. Caleb, do you know anything for us?
Yeah, it's not a hugely granular level, but I do have numbers for 2024 broken down by month, numbers for 2025 broken down by month, including anybody who was booked for Noval, DWLS third, and there's one more, but it's escaping me at this exact moment in time. And so I can get these while we're talking about other things. I can do some quick math here and see if I can get totals for 24 and 25 for all three of those offenses.
That would be helpful. And Caleb, I know it's granular, and I know we've talked before about some of the issues is sometimes when these people are booked, they're booked on other charges. They're booked on more serious charges, and these kind of follow suit with them because, they've managed to hit every municipality in the county, and now they're, racking up charges in district and superior courts because they usually start somewhere. But I don't know if you're able to break that out specifically, or if it's just going to show who's in custody for these charges.
Right. So one more complication to all that is if somebody comes to court, or I should say, if somebody doesn't come to court when they've had when they're to be arraigned or whatever, probably just arraignment for like a Noval or for a DWS 3, then they're going to have a warrant that's going to drag them there to court and be arrested, and that's probably going to be a reason. I don't know if Caleb can separate all that out too, but that's a complicated factor as well.
Yeah, it's pretty early in the definition of this reporting process, and I'm getting support from our IT, which is helpful. I can say that the number of bookings for 2024 that had at least one of those offenses was 78. And so far in 2025, the number of bookings that we have that has at least one of those offenses, 36. And then the things that I'm categorizing them for, like right now, and there's going to be more detail to this later, but right now, it's the number of offenses. So of those 78 people in 2024 that were booked, 363 total offenses. And then including one of those offenses, the number of bookings is 252. This gets really complicated when I'm just saying it out loud, but I hope to have more granularity and specific things that I can report back to you on today. Right now, I don't have a differentiation between any of the individual offenses, and I hope to have that by the end of the day. I also hope to have the idea of whether it was a new offense or a warrant, and distinct counts of bookings, distinct counts of people, distinct counts of offenses, distinct counts of people who are booked on those offenses and other offenses or by themselves. That's what I'm hoping to get, but I don't have all of that just yet.
Thank you, Caleb and Eric and Jake. Is there any other comments, concerns, or things that anybody wants to see from those reports, or if we need any addition to that? Stephen, you're really quiet today. I'm concerned.
I'm mostly listening. This is beyond my usual ken.
Very good. I think we can come back and circle back at maybe the next meeting or so with more information from Caleb on those reports, and we can try to reach out to some of the municipalities to see what their numbers are looking like and the impacts that they have. So I think that might be beneficial. But I appreciate everybody's input on that. Going on to the next topic is November meeting date and the 2026 action plan and bi-monthly schedule. And I believe that's from pages 5 through 7. And on page 5, you want to help me out, Jill? Are we talking about canceling the November meeting or rescheduling because of the holiday? Oh,
Yes,
sorry,
this-
Caleb.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify something. I'm doing arithmetic really fast, and I misunderstood one of the labels on this, so I said something that was completely inaccurate. So I want to clarify that of the charges that I mentioned, and help me out if I forgot one of them: driving while license suspended third, no valid operator license, and there's one more that I'm tracking that I can't remember, Eric.
Was it trip report?
Failure to transfer title.
Failure to transfer.
That's what it was. Thanks.
Sorry, thank you. So of those three offenses, all offenses across all bookings and people, in 2024, we had 363. In 2025, we had 315. The number of people who were booked with at least one of those offenses for 2024 is 249. And in 25 so far, the number of people who have booked with at least one of those offenses is 242. So the numbers are going up from 24 to 25 if we're looking at the trend.
So
And the number of bookings, including at least one of those offenses for 24, is 252. And for 2025, the number of bookings, including one of those offenses, is 244.
right, and Caleb, of course, many of those are attached to other more serious crimes, right?
Correct. Yeah, and I still haven't been able to parse that out, but I wanted to correct myself before because I added up a wrong column and it was inaccurate. I want to make sure that that was clear. So I apologize.
All right, great, thank you.
Thanks so much. Sorry about that, Jill.
That's okay. Yeah, just a housekeeping item. There's no meeting scheduled right now for November as that's a holiday, Veterans Day. I can put the November calendar up on the screen if you like, but the question is, do you want to schedule a meeting in November? And if so, when?
Well, because we also have Thanksgiving in there and a lot of other things happening, I'm okay with striking that meeting for November, but I want the committee to weigh in on their thoughts.
I vote to cancel the meeting.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it.
Will do. I will not schedule a meeting for November. Thank you so much. The other item I have on your agenda is in the light of the council's budget discussion, they're reviewing staff time assigned to the task force and its committees. And one of the options they want to consider is reducing the meeting frequency to every other month. And so meetings would be scheduled January, March, et cetera, et cetera. So they're asking the committees to provide a little feedback on if that will serve your needs or if that will be a problem, or any other input you want to put on possibly reducing the meeting schedule next year.
So I have a question regarding that. What are the costs associated with this meeting? I know that some of the meetings that the council had been talking about involved having moderators. And of course, we don't have a moderator other than Raylene, who's doing a wonderful job. But we don't have, designated contracted moderators.
Correct. They're looking at my hours specifically.
Oh,
Yeah. The IPRTF gets a lot of staff time from me, and so they're just taking a look at that and seeing if the IPRTF is functioning most efficiently.
I think it takes a lot of staff time. A lot of us are already in other meetings. I know I can speak for Stephanie and I that we are spread thin with a lot of other meetings. I greatly appreciate Wendy Jones coming on board to help out, because that gives me a little more breathing room. But I do think that sometimes we struggle to meet all of the needs, and lessening that seems to make more sense. I like the idea of doing an in-person group, maybe quarterly, and then reporting back on a bi-monthly basis. I think that might be a more productive use of our time, to have the stakeholders in at that meeting and then reporting back, because these are recorded, and I think it's important for the public to hear what's being worked on, and why things need to be done specific ways. But that's my 2 cents.
And nothing's decided yet. council is just wanting the conversation to happen. And to kind of brainstorm other alternatives, you know, if you've got any other ideas for a meeting schedule that might be more efficient, they'd love to hear that as well. Stephen?
I would just comment, somewhat following, I think Sheriff Tank's earlier comment about the courtrooms. The implementation plan is a long-term process. We've sort of hunkered down the last year into smaller work groups that are a little bit offline, but this is going to come back into more public meetings, I think, down the road. And if we lose Jill's time at all, she's gone. I mean, you're not going to get her back to more hours. So that's just something to think about, I think. Because to me, in all my time with this, Jill has been the linchpin for the functioning of these conversations.
Thanks, Stephen, and I concur. Jill has been a lifesaver in all of these meetings and being the voice and bringing all of us together as one task force from all of these subcommittees. It's imperative that we keep Jill here.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. And Raylene and Wendy, I think steering committee was also asking each committee to take a look at the action plan and to identify what you're going to be working on over the next year or so. So I can screen share the action plan. If we have time, it looks like we've only got a few more minutes left. If that's where you go, just let me know.
Yeah, I think you can go ahead and screen share, and I guess what I would ask is for this group to come up with what is realistic, what can we actually accomplish with these action items. I know we've had some discussion on bail, and I have reached out to the fire brigade. I'm waiting to hear back from them. Because we had a presentation, Commissioner Emmerich and Judge Jones did an analysis at one of our legal and justice meetings on bail practices and why things are done. There was actually another meeting with the fire brigade and press on what's constitutionally required, and so we were inviting them to one of our task force meetings to speak as a whole. So I think that's something that people need to understand a little more clearly. But I do want to say that Commissioner Emmerich and Judge Jones did a fabulous job. So I just wanted to get somebody else to provide some more overview to the entire task force. So I am waiting to hear back from, I believe it's the judge from Walla Walla that spoke at that meeting. And then re-entry is something that I think can tie in to some of the work that we're already doing. But as we're looking at building and constructing the jail, and then we need to circle back to diversion programs and what funding is there. But those are what I see out of this. I don't know if other people have other input or things that they think is realistic for us to actually really focus on and where to go with that. And there's silence. So I guess what I would ask is that everybody take a look at that, send feedback on different topics, different things that you think we should be focusing on. And then we also have another joint meeting coming up in the near future. So topics that want to be discussed at that joint meeting. And then I think we have to open it up for public comment or other business first and then public comment. Okay, no other business. Jill, you want to check for public comment?
Sure, we have one attendee. If you'd like to speak to the committee, please virtually raise your hand now. I don't see a hand raised, and I don't see anyone in our conference room. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for a productive meeting. We're gonna adjourn at 12:26. Have a great day.